Hello guys, welcome to the biology lesson. In today's biology lesson, we are going to continue with the same topic we started, which is the nervous system and sensory organs. But today we'll be looking at the brain, okay? We will be looking at the brain, okay? Then the parts of the brain and then their functions. Then we will also look at the effects of drugs on the brain, okay? So without further ado, let's go straight into what the lesson is about. So you must understand, guys, that the brain is the largest part of the central nervous system, and it is made up of billions of neurons, synapses, and supportive tissues. Okay, so that's what the brain is. The largest part of the central nervous system that has billions of neurons, synapses, and then supportive tissues. Okay, so the brain coordinate and regulate activities of the body. That's what it does to make sure that the body is working in harmony. Each part of the body is working in harmony according to the needs of the body. So the brain is at the center of coordinating and regulating activities of the body. Okay, so sensory nerves connected to the brain send nerve impulses to different parts of the brain, which then integrates the information. Yeah, so we have sensory nerves that are connected to the brain. Okay, so these now they send information to the brain, to different parts of the brain. Okay, every part of our body is connected to the brain. There's no party of our body which is not connected to the brain, and these parts have sensory neurons. So these sensory neurons, which are part of our body, make sure that they send information to the different parts of the brain, and when that information goes to those different parts of the brain, then those different parts of the brain integrates the information, or in other words, interpret and make sense of that information, and then send it back and then send feedback to those organs. Okay, so that's what we are saying here, that the brain then relay the information back to target organs through motor neurons, so that target organs execute a response. Okay, so that's what happens when the information goes to the brain. It is integrated, then the brain understands what that information is all about, then send it back via the motor neuron. Then those target organs now understand what they are supposed to do after that information comes from the body. Then they carry out or execute a response. Okay, so now let's look at the main parts of the brain. So now we look at the main parts of the brain. So we are saying the brain consists of two main parts, namely we have one, a forebrain, and then two, hindi brain. Okay, so let me push this one up here so that I bring a diagram here to understand what these are. So we have this part here which is called the forebrain, and this down part here which is called the hindi brain. Then we have also this one here, midi brain, which I have not stated here because according to your syllabus, these are the ones that we are supposed to talk about, but the diagram that I put out contains also this part, which is the midi brain. Okay, so these are the main parts of the brain. Okay, now let's look at each one of these and see what they really are. Okay, so let's now look at this forebrain, which is this part here. So we are saying the forebrain is made up of the cerebrum, then thalamus, hypothalamus, and the pituitary gland. Okay, so this here, the forebrain here, is consist of cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus, and then the pituitary gland, which I'm going to show you very soon. Okay, so these are the parts which are here, the cerebrum, the thalamus, hypothalamus, and the pituitary gland. Okay, now let's look at it now. Hindi brain, which is this part here. So here we are told that the Hindi brain is made up of the cerebrum and the medulla oblongata. Okay, So this hindbrain here is made up of the cerebellum, okay, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata or oblongata, okay. So that's what this part is made up of, two parts of the brain, the cerebellum and then medulla oblongata, okay. So now let me show you now the diagram that will show you what these are, okay. So now this diagram here will show us where the parts of the forebrain are, the ones we have mentioned, like the cerebrum. So this part here is the cerebrum, okay. We have the cerebrum, then the thalamus. When you check properly, thalamus is this part here. This is the thalamus. Then hypothalamus, it is down the thalamus here. That's where we have the hypothalamus. Then we have the pituitary gland, which is this protruding part here, pituitary gland, okay. Then when we come to the hindbrain, which is this part here, so the hindbrain consists of the cerebellum. So this is the cerebellum here, this part here, the cerebellum. Then we have also the medulla oblongata, which is this part here, medulla. So this part is the medulla oblongata, okay. So this is just one type of the diagram, the diagram of the brain you can come across. So I can also show you another one like this one here, okay. So this is another way the brain can look like. So again, as we have already stated, this is the cerebrum again. Then here we have the thalamus. Then down the thalamus we have the hypothalamus. Then the protruding part here it is the pituitary gland. Then this part here we have the cerebellum. Then this part here is the medulla oblongata. Then the down part one here is called the spinal cord, okay. So these are the ways the brain can appear in different books and also exam papers. Like for instance, in an exam paper they can bring the question on the brain like this one here, okay. So you see that it may look different a bit, but the actual parts, the important parts, can be able to be identified, like this one, the cerebrum. Then this one can be the pituitary gland. Then this one, the medulla oblongata. Then this one can be the cerebellum, okay. Then this down part here is the spinal cord. Also, you can also see the other form in which this brain can be brought in an exam. Still B is the cerebrum. Then this one, A, is the pituitary gland. Then D is still the medulla oblongata. Then C is still the cerebellum, okay. So these are the forms in which this diagram can come, so you can acquaint yourself with these, okay. So now let's now move and look at the functions of the many parts of the forebrain and hindbrain. So those functions that we have looked at, the functions of, the parts of the forebrain and then the parts of the hindbrain, those parts now we are going to look at each one of them and see what their functions is. So we are starting with the cerebrum, okay, cerebrum. So what is the function of the cerebrum? So it has function number one. It determines the level of intelligence, thinking, memory, and imagination, okay. So the part of the brain which determines intelligence, thinking, memory, and imagination is the cerebellum, okay. So it determines the level of intelligence, thinking, memory, and imagination. Then number two, it controls voluntary movements such as the movement of limbs, mouth, lips, tongue, neck, abdomen, etc. Okay, so these voluntary movement are movement that we are aware of when making them, okay. These are movement when you stretch your hand to hold a cup. That kind of a movement, you are aware of it and you are making a decision in making such a movement. And the part of the brain that controls such movements is the cerebrum, and such movements are called voluntary movements because we take part in making those movements, or we decide to make those movements, or we are in control of those movements. So the cerebrum controls voluntary movements such as the movement of limbs. These are joints or hands and legs. Then the mouth, as I'm talking, lips, tongue, neck, abdomen, etc. All right. Then the third function is that it's responsible for the sensation of pain, temperature, touch, sight, and hearing. So when you sense pain or you feel pain, it is actually this part of the brain which makes you be aware or sense of that pain. And also when you sense temperature, either it's hot or cold, it is this part of the brain. Then also touch, when you are touched, it's this part of the brain. Then also sight, when you see, it is this part of the brain. Also hearing. So in short, it controls the senses. Okay, senses, like we have sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of a taste, sense of hearing. Okay, those five senses which we have. Okay, sense of smell, sense of touch, sense of taste, then of sense of sight, then sense of hearing. Five senses. Okay, so it is responsible for the sensation of pain, temperature, touch, sight, and the hearing. Okay, so these are the functions of the cerebrum. Okay, then next we look at the hypothalamus. Okay, so now we look at the hypothalamus. So what are the functions of the hypothalamus? So we are saying, one, it controls temperature and water level. Okay, it controls temperature and water level. It plays a very important in homeostasis. Okay, so it controls temperature and water levels, and then it controls appetite, talking, and sleeping. So this is what it does. Then thirdly, it stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete hormones. Okay, so it also stimulates the pituitary to secrete hormones. Okay, then let's move and look at the cerebellum. Okay, this cerebellum also, it maintains balance or equilibrium of the body through coordinated muscle movements. Okay, so when you stand balanced, it means that it is the cerebellum that maintains your balance or equilibrium of the body through coordinated muscle movements. Okay, then two, it maintains normal body posture. Okay, so normal body posture is the one that makes those normal body posture. Your eyes, everything to be at normal. What is in control is the cerebrum. If the person's eyes are not at normal, meaning the part of the body which is affected and is the brain, and to be particular, it is the cerebrum. Okay, then we move to the medulla oblongata. So the medulla oblongata, its function is it controls the unconscious body actions such as swelling, salivation, or swallowing, salivation, then vomiting, and respiration, then breathing process, digestion, heartbeat, contraction, and dilation of blood vessels. Okay, when we say unconscious body actions, we mean involuntary body actions such as reflex actions, those actions that happen without us being aware they are happening. Okay, like when you swallow, food is pushed up to the stomach by what we call peristalsis. So such kind of a movement is such kind of an action is actually a an action that is that we are not aware of, and it comes from the medulla oblongata. So it controls the unconscious body actions such as swallowing, salivation, vomiting, respiration, breathing process, digestion, heartbeat, contraction, and dilation of blood vessels. Okay, so you must be remembering all these things. Okay, then we look at the spinal cord as well. So this spinal cord, it connects the brain to the peripheral nervous system, which are the nerves and the other parts of the body. Then it coordinates reflex responses. So it coordinates reflex responses. Those responses that we talked about, like touching hot objects, where you withdraw your hand almost automatically. So it does that as the spinal cord. Then we look at a pituitary gland. So this one, we say it is a master gland that controls the rest of the endocrine glands. So this one is a master gland that controls the rest of the endocrine gland. Okay, now let's look at the effects of abuse of drugs on the nervous system. Okay, now we are going to look at the abuse of drugs and what it does on the nervous system. So before we do that, let's learn a bit about the drugs. Okay, so we are saying a drug is any externally administered substance which modifies or alters the rate of metabolic reactions in the body. Okay, yeah, so a drug is just any externally administered, anything that you put in the mouth so that it, or in the body, so that it can modify or change the rate of metabolic reactions in the body. Anything, alcohol, tobacco, all those things which you can take so that they can alter, they can change the way the body functions. Those things are known as the drugs. Okay, so then you must understand that the term drug refers to useful substances such as medicine as well as harmful substances. Yeah, so it can be useful substances such as medicine, because medicine also alter the metabolic reactions of the body as well. Okay, so there are also drugs, but not only medicine, but as well as harmful substances. Okay, so harmful substances, poison, can also be said to be drugs. Okay, so let's push this one up and then you continue. So then we are saying drugs may be administered in several ways, including, so these are the ways drugs can be administered. Okay, so one, ingestion or taking through the mouth, so you can take directly, put the drug directly in the mouth, or injection, use of needles and syringes to introduce drugs into the blood, yeah, where they use injections here. Then also sniffing, where taking a powdered drug taking a powdered drug in through the nostril, e.g. snuff. Okay, like so-called in our local language. So again, fourthly, inhalation, taking a vaporized drug in through the respiratory system. Okay, where someone breathes in the vaporized drug. So these are the ways through drugs can be administered or can enter the body. Okay, now let's move and look at what we are saying here. So we are saying drugs are supposed to be medicinal. Okay, they're supposed to be medicinal, meaning they're supposed to make the body better. They're supposed to be taken in the body to actually heal any illness which is in the body. That's what we mean when we say drugs are supposed to be medicinal, but taken incorrectly leads to abuse. Okay, so then we must understand that drug abuse is a wrong use of drugs. So wrong use of drugs is drug abuse. So drugs can be abused in the following ways. Okay, one, taking a drug for a wrong purpose. So when you are taking drugs for wrong purposes, that is the drug abuse. Then two, taking an overdose. So when you take overdose, that is also drug abuse. Then three, taking an underdose. Yeah, so when they prescribe let's say drugs for treatment of a certain illness, then you do not maybe complete, let's say, the course that or a dose that you are given, then that is also known as drug abuse. Okay, then we are saying the following are the effects of abuse of drugs on the nervous system. Okay, so these are the now effects of abusing drugs on the nervous system. So number one, affect the breathing center of the brain. Okay, so it affects the breathing center of the brain, and in this case it is a depressant. These are drugs which are depressant, so they destroy the neurons. So they destroy the neurons and then increase reaction time. So when neurons gets destroyed, it's one of the effects of drugs, destroying neurons and then increasing reaction time. Like if you're a driver, then you take drugs, then they increase what we call reaction time. Okay, reaction time is time that is taken for a person to make a decision, okay, or to react to a response. Like a driver sees a person crossing, then if they are not drunk, immediately they are supposed to apply the brakes so that the vehicle slows down or stops to avoid bashing into the person. But if they have administered drugs, then the drugs can make them slow, okay? So instead of doing it quickly, it will take time for them to make a decision, and that can result into an accident. So drugs destroy neurons and increase the reaction time, okay? So to induce relief from pain, okay? So when we say induce relief from pain, there are drugs that actually can make you not to feel certain pains, okay? So also can also induce relief from pain, fatigue, and alleviate depression. So there are some drugs that can make someone who is depressed to feel like somehow better, okay? So that's what they do. So induce relief from pain, fatigue, and alleviate depression, okay? Then three, causes lack of sleep and reduce the sexual urge, okay? So some drugs can cause lack of sleep, and then they can reduce the sexual desire, in short, okay? Some people can have reduced the sexual desire or age, okay, especially maybe in men, okay? Then three, leads to loss of appetite. So to some, drugs can lead to loss of appetite, especially beer. To some people, it leads them to loss of appetite, okay? Now we have another part of a drug. So here we are going to look at the effects of tetanus infection, okay? Effect of tetanus infection. So tetanus infection is an infection actually that affects the nervous system, especially which comes from certain bacteria, okay? So now we are going to say that tetanus toxin is a neurotoxin which inhibits transmission of impulses in the nervous system, leading to muscular tenseness, okay? So now we have this tetanus infection, which is actually caused by tetanus toxin. And this tetanus toxin is a neurotoxin. It means that it is a toxic, as in where the nervous system is concerned, which inhibits or prevents transmission of impulses in the nervous system, leading to muscular tenseness. So now, since this toxin can impede or can prevent movement of nerve impulses in the nervous system, then it can cause the muscles to become stiff or hard or not to carry out actions, okay? So we are saying tetanus toxin exerts its effect on the brain cells, resulting in the formation of lesions. So these lesions are actually bruises, especially in the cortical region, hence inhibiting or preventing brain functions, okay? So it can inhibit brain functions, okay, or prevent brain functions. So the tetanus toxin inhibits interneuron communication by hindering synthesis and release of neurotransmitter substance called the acetylcholine, okay? So it can do that, acetylcholine, okay? So this tetanus can inhibit interneural communication. So like the communication between a neuron, we can call it interneural communication. So by what? So it actually by hindering the synthesis and the release of neurotransmitters. So it can hinder production, and then it can hinder making and the production of neurotransmitters that are called acetylcholine, okay? So the tetanus toxin induces muscular contractions, leading to severe muscle spasms that are powerful enough to tear the muscle. So these are tensions as well that are powerful enough to tear the muscles, okay? So this could result in paralysis. So if the muscles are torn, then it can result to paralysis. So the toxin also affects muscles that control breathing, resulting in difficulty in breathing and subsequent suffocation. Okay, so guys, we have come to the end of this part of the lesson. All right, I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, thank you very much. And if you have not understood anything, you can comment in the group and I will be glad to attend to your question. So here we have a question for you for homework. It says A, describe the functions of the forebrain, hindbrain, and then B, it says describe the effects of abuse of drugs on the nervous system. Then C, explain the effects of tetanus infection in human beings. Okay, so guys, bye and see you in the next lesson.